Hey there traders, it's Jeff from thestockbandit.com. Thanks for joining me for this video. As we head into a new week of trading, it's time to take a look at where we stand in the broad market. We know that's going to influence how individual stocks move, and so the last couple of weeks have been really interesting. Keep in mind that we pulled back here off these recent highs, saw this little V-shaped recovery as of a week ago Friday, and it continued throughout last week, only with some very minor weakness kicking in on Friday of this past week. So what that did was it took the NASDAQ, the Dow, and the S&P all to new multi-year highs. The Dow and the S&P both achieved new all-time highs. The NASDAQ hasn't quite pushed past that 5,000 level again yet, but you know, it did get past the 3,300 level. This move off this 3168 low up to this high from last week at 3,306 represented a 4.3% rally. And given that it just took place over the course of about a week's time, that certainly is a tremendous move over a very short period of time. For the week, the NASDAQ gained 91 points, but when you consider that of the previous Friday, from the low of that morning up to the close, that was also a considerable gain. So, you know, the NASDAQ here is still holding above this breakout level that it already failed once through. Now it's broken through, pulled back to kind of test that area. That's the 3263 level. We pulled back to 3271 on Friday, and we held above it. So also take note here of this quiet volume that came with Friday's bar, really indicating very limited selling, and we also went out right near the high of the day. So we saw a little bit of a drift higher throughout the session. So we'll continue to see if the bulls can consolidate this move, maybe with some additional lateral price action. That certainly would be the most healthy development going forward. For the S&P 500, this index really is caught between these two channel trend lines, and it's got a little bit more room here to lift within its channel. Now, for the past 6 days here off the low of 2 Fridays ago up to last week's high, this was a 3.7% run, and so that's a big move for this index, and yet it still has room to come back up and challenge this upper channel line, which continues to rise daily, but that's currently around the 1620 level. This index last week pushed through that 2007 high of 1576, so that was very significant. And here again on Friday, we saw only minor downside. This index only gave up about 4.5 points. Volume was just about average, so it really wasn't anything but just kind of some modest churn and minor profit taking. So we'll continue to keep a close eye here at this most recent high, 1597, as the S&P closes in on a potential push through that 1600 level. For the Russell 2000, this index has been the one that's been worth watching the closest, because from this November low to the highs, this is about a 24% move. And so this index, this small cap index, led the way higher, and this is the more speculative index. And so when we see money flowing into it, it shows a real appetite for risk. When we see money flowing out, it shows either a little bit of rotation into some of the larger cap stocks or a little bit of a flight to safety. Now, with the market hitting highs, we don't necessarily see that flight to safety, but we have been seeing something a little bit more interesting. Keep in mind, 2 weeks ago, I noted the failure of the Russell to push through this 954 level. Instead, it rolled lower within its channel, broke down here, and found some support at this 909 level a week ago Friday. Since then, it rallied right back up. Last Thursday, we got to 951, so we did not quite hit this 954 area, and then we backed off a little bit on Friday, just about 0.5%, so not a lot. And we did see some buying on Friday, but overall, this thing remains back in this channel between 932 and 954. These are still the big levels to watch. If we do bust back below this 932, then we'll keep a very close eye on this 909 level, followed by this 894 level, which was also a prior support zone seen most recently back here in late February. So for the Russell, though, it's very interesting to see that this index has had several weeks to push through the 954 level and just can't seem to break out yet. So we'll see if this really is indicative of something a little bit more ominous. There is some potential here for a lower high to be getting carved out at the moment. So we'll see if this 954 level continues to hold. But this index, even after a 4.6% lift, still tacked on 19% or 19 points last week, and still just can't quite push through that major 954 level. So we'll watch that in the days ahead. And then finally is the Dow, which continues to hit new all-time highs. It seems to be really gravitating toward 15,000. We're only about 135 points from there as of Friday's close. Friday, we saw a rally back to finish basically flat on the day. It was pretty much unch. And so we saw pretty minor volume with that. It really was just kind of a day of rest and digestion. So this rally here for the Dow represents a 3.1% move. And for the week, it tacked on 299 points. So this is a big move for the Dow. But again, it's going to need to continue to see some strength from the S&P and the NASDAQ if this index is going to continue working its way higher and leading the way. So there's a look at the broad market. If you're looking for some trade ideas to add to your own, come on over to thestockbandit.com. Check us out. We're running a free trial right now. And at the moment, we're holding some longs and some shorts because it's really interesting right now, the mixture of very strong stocks and very weak stocks, especially in a market that's hitting multi-year highs. So it's going to be an interesting time of trading going forward, and I think that there's going to continue to be quite a few opportunities. We'd love to show you what we're all about. Thanks for joining me for this video. I will have more for you soon, but until then, trade like a bandit.